antiquated within the near future. We will not be carrying around these rigid screens. They'll become bendable, flexible, stretchable. We'll be wearing them, they'll be integrated, and pretty soon they'll be done away with entirely. We'll have virtual reality or augmented reality. We'll have gesture control and touch, tap and swipe. It's not going to go away overnight, but it will be replaced minority, report style with verbal interaction, conversational commerce, which is of course why chatbots are emerging now as a favored method of interacting with things. So it'll be your car, your smart home, your smart office, embeddable wearable devices. We'll be conversing with these machines in a very seamless way once AI has been improved, refined, and after all, we're not that far away from the singularity. Some say the singularity is due in just over 10 years, 2030. Tim is shaking his head. We have this conversation. Tim doesn't really know that much about the subject because he's a PhD in AI and linguistics. Actually, he kind of does. But we have this thing about the Turing test, and I just feel that there have been times where I have been sort of tricked into thinking that I'm speaking to a human. Okay, not indefinitely. It was pretty soon you realize, this is not a human, it's a chatbot I'm interacting with. But for that sort of brief moment in time, did it pass the Turing test or didn't it? Now, Tim is absolutely explicit. No, we've not reached the point where artificial intelligence is capable of fooling a human being into believing that they're conversing with a machine as opposed to a person. But I just feel we're closer to that stage of development than a lot of people think. So it's very, very exciting and very interesting times. So chatbots, like I said, flavor of the month, all the rage. Everyone's talking about chatbots. Who in the room is involved with chatbots internally in terms of your organization? You're thinking maybe this is something we need to integrate into our kind of business process or customer services. So how many? Who's the guy from Skyscanner, by the way? That's you, Stefan. We haven't actually met. Stefan. Great. So you're third on, yeah? All set? You've got your deck, your computer? My laptop, yeah. Brilliant. Fantastic. So Gihan, you're from Converse AI. Yep. And I'm going to hand over to you to introduce yourself in a little bit more depth. And you can get cracking with your presentation. You've got everything you need now. You've got the Flickr. You've got your laptop. Yeah, perfect. That's right. Over to you. Okay, round of applause. Gihan from Converse AI.
So I'm Gihan and I'm from Converse AI. So what Converse AI does is pretty much a chatbot building platform where people doesn't need to actually use code and sit down and write rigorous amount of NLP code and process linkages and all these things. Where what we have is we have this concept of chat flow where you, rather than program your chatbot or communication, you actually model your conversation where your user and your bot needs to have, and between that you can integrate your services like if you want to send some data to Salesforce or something like that, so you can link up modules throughout the conversation, same way as a human being who's gathering the data would type on the Salesforce account, so the bot would do that for you. So we are playing around with the concept called chat flow, where bots are just not for chat purposes, but they actually can run day-to-day businesses and actually use them as employees to help your current employees or to have a more stand. So to start off with, so this idea of chatbots is not a new idea, to be honest. It has been there from IRC days, if people have been using them. So, and also automated answer based on text is not a new idea. So, but why there's this huge chatbot explosion? So I think one of the main points is that more and more people are based to use messaging as their main communication method. So people like texting rather than picking up the phone and talking to somebody or emailing or anything like that. Just purely text-based communication has gone up with the new millennium. And another thing is, so more and more businesses which are out there are moving to social media. So Like you can't, these days you can't find a single company which doesn't have a Facebook page or have a Twitter account which actually communicate to their users. So which brings a total new paradigm of how are we going to keep track of amount of information that people are trying to talk to us or have a conversation with us. Because if you have a Facebook page, somebody would need to chat to you on the Facebook. So you're not going to put, you can't sustain by putting huge amount of human power onto that, because any given day, maximum a human would be able to talk would be 2 or 3 simultaneous conversations, and threading is something that computers have solved about 20 odd years ago. So you can simply run multiple conversations over and over again. And so other aspect is these days you can actually have anything as a service. I mean, when was the last time somebody hosted their own email server or even wrote their own CRM rather than using Salesforce? So if there's so much of open APIs that people can integrate. So, and that has given this idea of, okay, so we can actually automate things. So where chatbots came was, okay, so the automation part came up and there were APIs, but now people wanted the more natural way of communication with these APIs rather than just trying to adapt them as separate programs. And other thing which I always like to talk about is, so if you pick your smartphone now, how many mobile applications that you currently have? Like, so with the concept like IoT, where you can manage your fridge, manage your house, and manage your heating system, you are not going to have a app for each specific component of your household. So most probably you would want to, I don't know, text to the house and say, please put the heating on, and it'll sort the rest of the things out, rather than click on the house app and then go and select the heating app, whatever, based on the heating provider, and then say, well, okay, let's put the heating up again. And most importantly, the NLP and AI technologies have moved a lot ahead, rather than days of regular expressions and matching strings together to map NLP. So that has had a huge effect on this explosion of chatbots. So where does the role of NLP actually comes into play? So obviously NLP is the core of chatbots, because what you want people to interact is with natural language. So that's the whole reason of people are moving to text. There are so much is on using emojis, so like abbreviations and everything, rather than just going and clicking on buttons. So NLP plays a huge role. I'm not going to dive into what is the best technology of NLP out there, because there's a half a dozen APIs that you can just take out, and there's so much of research papers has been done if you want to implement your own NLP thing. But exactly when it comes to chatbots, there's few things that we need to consider when either using or adopting NLP technology. So the main thing is emphasis on sentiment. So the current, I wouldn't say current NLP is not 100% there. Well, not even, I don't think even 50% there. So one of the, I think you can beep this if you want to, but one of the explicit examples that we got from our customers was, so somebody was typing, this is the shit. So, and also there's a huge difference, somebody typing this is shit and this is the shit when it comes to actual sentiment. A normal human being would be able to pick that up, but majority of the NLP code out there would always flag that as a bad impression. On when somebody says this is the shit, it'll say this is a bad impression of your product. And currently, I can tell you any NLP system currently would flag that out as a bad usage of your user experience. So there's a lot of work that needs to be there, but I'm sure the technologies would come there at some point. And the other thing is ongoing training. So when you're building a chatbot, so one of the main components of NLP is actually you need to train it, and people need to understand what is the intent, what is the context that is being linked up with. So you need to make sure that you have an NLP system where when you're, and the worst case of this matter is that you would actually get to know what people are asking when the bot is actually live running in your system. So you need to catch the failures and train your NLP system without actually putting the bot down. So you don't want to give a bad experience to users that say, so okay, bot is down for training. That's a bad adaptation of bots. And again, most of the current NLP systems are missing this as well, the actual chat abbreviation. So when was the last time somebody said yes rather than giving a thumbs up for a yes no question? So most of the NLP system, if you send a thumbs up as an emoji, it'll break that says I can't pass this. So those kind of consideration needs to be taken off, because you're actually trying to link up a bot to an existing messaging platform rather than asking users to change their behavior to use the bot. I think me and Tim had a very good discussion one day about this idea, because people are already used to using SMS, they're already used to using Facebook Messenger or Layer or whatever, 100 different messaging platforms. So people need to be able to link, NLP system should be able to understand this is what people are talking about when they're using actual abbreviations of the language. And one of the most important things, again, context-aware NLP. So for example, if somebody says orange in your chat, so orange can be a fruit if your chatbot is handling a fruit market, and orange can be a color if it's a textile retail shop, and again, orange can be a drink if it's a, I don't know, something like Fanta or something like that. So based on the context, the word orange would have different meanings. So a human being can understand based on the context what they're talking about. So the same idea needs to be adapted to any NLP technology that you are using if you want to give a proper experience for the user base. And most importantly, just because you have the perfect NLP system, it would not produce a useful bot. Because NLP is just, like I said, as the heart, it will understand what you're talking about. But most important thing is what you're going to do with the data that you actually understood and how you're going to use them. So what are the things that, there are a few things that we need to consider beyond NLP if you're doing chatbots. So the first thing is user experience and users' perception on using chatbots. The same way Simon said. So would people need to know, your user base need to know whether this is handled by a bot or whether this is handled by a human? Does it actually matter? So when we had our first customer, so we did all this system with bells and whistles, very fast, and answers get bot answers in split milliseconds and things like that. So the first requirement from our customer was, could you please put some delay onto the answers? So regardless how many, so their first requirement was, I want a delay when the bot answers to match actual human answer. So that actually shows, okay, the technology is good, but that is totally to do with the user's perception of how they are using the service. And again, going back to the point of people are so used to using their different chat messages and chat systems. So whatever the bots that you develop need to incorporate with your, incorporate whatever the messaging platforms your customer base is already using. So that's a good thing of using bots and automated systems, because you can just link up with, I don't know, Messenger API, Slack API, Twilio APIs for SMS and all those purposes. You can link them up nicely and it will work. And if you want to make your life easy, you need to find a way that you can actually train a single bot to talk to different channels. It's almost like putting model view controller approach onto bot communication. So if somebody comes with Facebook, so they can just use the Facebook approach, but your training data and your NLP model and everything is a single bot. So but based on where they're coming from, the perception would differ. And use of rich media. So again, this comes back to, again, for the user's experience. So people like to send text, but they rarely like to read huge amount of information which is being sent to them. So they would like to see pictures. If you're sending a bunch of on a retail shop, if you're somebody shopping and asks for, can I get some t-shirts? So rather than sending them, okay, go to this link, go to this link, go to this link, you can actually I don't know if anybody has used Facebook Messenger API. So you can actually send through Facebook. You can actually give them proper carousels that they can actually browse on the chat rather than sending them explicit link where they can click on. So again, goes back to so the NLP. So chatbots are based on text, but again, you need to when you're considering about the user experience, if your incoming messages or incoming data stream allows rich media approaches, where if somebody wants to say, well, yes or no, so rather than asking them to type yes or no, you can actually give 2 buttons, please click yes or no. It's on the same chat box, which has more user adaptation than just asking them to type all the time. And I guess the other thing is linking up with your existing services. So there's no point of having a chatbot just to have communication and gather the data, and you want somebody else to browse through the data which was gathered and actually put them onto a different system to process. So if you want to employ or use a chatbot as part of your core platform or part of your core communication, you need to exactly do what you would want a staff member to do when you are gathering that information. So if you are adding a sales lead onto Salesforce, and if you are putting a chatbot in front to replicate whatever your first line support or second line support or sales guys were doing, that chatbot needs to interact exactly the same way that the human was interacting with your core system, so that you don't have huge differentiation of the data, and the adaptation within the company would be much easier. And human and bots working on the same conversation. So this is something that many of our current customers use. So people who use intercom, I don't know whether you guys know about intercom. So they put intercom in front of their website to gather basic information and chats and things, so chat to customers. And majority of them, the current usages that you have seen, is they actually put a bot to handle majority of the questions, while the same communication can be seen by every single staff member who's on the same team. So they're actually using the bot as a staff member, and if a bot fails to answer, then somebody jumps in and answer. As far as the user is concerned, they are actually getting a direct flow of information without having a different change between, oh, this is a bot and bot failed, and this is a human, and what's the difference? So which comes to the most important point. You need to handle when the bot failing. So end of the day, they are computers, and rather than saying computer says no, there should be a different mechanism that you have put when your bot actually fails, and to run with the current communication of the user. So it could be simple as it can be a failure of the system, it can be a failure of NLP parsing, or it can be failure of given bad data. It can be so many things, because end of the day we are talking about language processing, which is from different user to user, how they use semantics, how they use grammars, how they use actual speaking or spellings, and everything is totally different. So rather than bot says no, there should be a way that gradually either you put it to a human or put it to a nice way of handling those errors. So which brings to this diagram, which actually think how a bot should be adapted when they're using. So things that need to know. So the first thing, so you need to think about how your current employees going to behave with the bot. End of the day, somebody needs to train the bot to do some sort of a work. So it could be expert knowledge that current one of the staff members have. It could be somebody. And if you're using, I mean, these days most of the companies use, anybody use Slack as internal communication? So everybody uses Slack as internal communication. So you can't actually put a bot platform or a bot into a system and say, now please go to a different system to figure out where the bot has gone wrong. So if people are using chat for internal communication, the bot should be using chat for actually pushing messages out that says, okay, I can't sort out this, somebody can look it out as well, which ironically most of the few of our customers currently do as well. And again, talking about the automations and user experience, which is exactly the same thing. So you need to make sure that your different users or based on your user base, based on how they come from, you actually give a proper user experience for them. So if somebody is coming from Facebook and chatting to you, asking about some details, given, again, going back to the rich media angle, given that you can actually do rich media, there's no point of actually asking him to either type 1 to 10, a number between 1 to 10, a number between 1 to 2. But again, if somebody is coming from SMS, you can't do that angle. So you need to actually ask them for an actual textual input. So based on how they are interacting with your bot, you need to be flexible enough so that you can actually push the correct experience onto the user. And the main thing, it's almost like, so how much do you trust your bot to run your business, which is the most important and most painful thing for pretty much every guy who's adopting a bot. So to what certain extent that you would trust your bot. So would you trust your bot to do, I don't know, multi-million sale, or would you trust your bot to handle requests from your biggest customer? So those kind of things. Again, end of the day, this is where the automation things would come into play. So if you actually consider a bot as a, I don't know, intern or a based employee. So if you don't trust your intern to handle your biggest customer as soon as they start, then most probably giving the bot to handle your biggest customer might not be the best solution there as well. So it's all to try to link up your current way of doing businesses with this whole idea of, okay, there's this other guy who sits in some channel and just answer questions randomly. So this is sort of a example use case. One of our customers came to us. So it's like, so the customer calls customer support and says, oh, my X service is not working. And the support guy checks the thing and say, oh, you haven't paid your bill. So it gets transferred onto accounts or billing department. And accounts stuff gets sorted and then comes back. Customer says, I'm paying way too much, so I need to change my plan. So then obviously customer support guy is not going to handle that. He's going to just push it to one of the salesperson or account managers or whatever. So this is kind of like, I don't know if you're buying internet service or anything like that, would be a base sort of a customer experience example. So how would you adopt such a use case? Because that is an actual tangible use case where customers would see there's actual business benefit to automating these kind of procedures. So there's two schools of thinking on this one. So one, you build this big bot who knows everything and link up to every single service which is out there, training and everything. And then you actually build multiple bots, small, just are specifically required to do specific tasks. So they are actually trained on X amount of the business and they'll understand the NLP and the language behind that part. Goes on like so. Both have their benefits and drawbacks. So like if you put single purpose bots, again, like I said, so if you say, well, there's Steve bot, then everybody knows what Steve bot do. So it says, okay, it asks for customer details, puts them up, checks everything up, and try to answer as much as FAQs it can. If it can't, then it will offload to whatever the department it needs to handle. And again, easy to train. So most probably Steve can train Steve bot because he knows what customers actually asking most of the time, what answers he give. So the training would be straightforward. And again, you would in your head you can actually model it nicely because you would see, well, this is what normal use case of Steve. So let's try to model what Steve does in a more conversational manner. And again, smoother bot human hybrid model again goes back to the part that says what happens when bot can't answer. So there should be, rather than telling, okay, there'll be human escalation if the bot fails, what you actually need is expert escalation when the bot fails. Because if your bot has already failed to answer a customer, you don't want to just pass it to somebody else, which says, oh, I don't know, I need to pass it to somebody else. And this guy says, I don't know, I need to pass to somebody else. So in a normal customer support scenario, you wouldn't do that in the first place. So why would you do that if you are adopting a bot to handle the base customer interaction. And again, if you just start with one, if the bot doesn't work, you can just say throw off bot. We'll just go back to the same way that we were doing things, which doesn't actually affect anything, because what you have done is you have just put another member of a staff to handle the same process that you guys were handling, and define clear boundaries. And again, if you have multiple bots, just one big thing to manage, and one place of interaction. User experience won't vary from each bot to bot, because normally what we have seen is bots, even though this is not intentional, bots tend to adapt, like the language, communication, even though this is all computational, nothing is majorly running with neural networks or anything like that. When different people training the bot, it almost becomes like it takes part of the same way that people interact, like the language that the bot uses and everything will become a bit different. So if Steve trains Steve bot and Brenda trains the sales bot, the language and the way that they would communicate and the questions being asked would be totally different, because it's two different people who are actually putting in the training data and says this is way how it should behave. And if you use one big bot, so it's just pretty much one single place of doing the languages. So again, so this is all good. So regardless which approach that you take, end of the day, these are computers running computational code on top of that. So the first thing is NLP has come a huge way from, I think for the last decade it has done a lot of work, but it is nowhere 100% perfect. It is nowhere, the current NLP, obviously this is going to change, another amount of research going on, is nowhere near have capabilities where the human would understand the natural language and how the NLP algorithms would understand the natural language. So that needs to be considered. So there's no, most of the time, the same way with humans, it's good to say I don't know and back off rather than giving a wrong answer. So most of the bots fails when it comes to NLP things, because they try to answer and not give a valid answer rather than say I don't know, I'll just ask somebody else to sort out this. And again, so when people build bots, so they have this perception that says telling to their customers or telling to anybody that this is actually backed by some of humans, if it breaks, is a bad idea. But in my head, it is a good idea, because at the end of the day, you know that if the bot fails, your user is guaranteed to have the same experience that he would have been having, rather than waiting for another or bot to pick up or somebody to restart the conversation. So the other thing is you need to model how the conversation would flow in your head. Like so this is what user is going to input, and these are my trigger words. This is how the user would going to link up, and these are the actual data that we want. So one of the mistakes that people would do is if you want an input, say as color, there's no problem of asking, could you please enter a color and ask for the color, because that gives easier on the user that says, okay, I need to input a color. And it is much easier on the NLP system as well. You can just say to the NLP, just could you please check for a color or some other parameters that will go near with the color, rather than this total random thing that says you input anything and we'll try to figure it out. So it's again going back to the user experience. And also this also goes back to the NLP system as well. So if you have a flow of conversation, so going to a flight search thing. So if somebody says I want a flight, that's fine. So your current intent triggering and whatever the algorithms that you can hook up can say, okay, so this guy needs a flight. So obviously, since it's typing, people would just keep on typing. Says from, say, So most probably your next question from the bot would be, where do you want to type? But by the time that bot is trying to send where do you want to type, user could have actually typed from London to Paris, something like that. So if you actually ask the question again from the user, that is a very bad user experience, because that shows that either nobody was looking at what user was typing. So when considering linking up your conversational flow, you should be able to grab, or you should grab as much as information from the user's current interaction or past interaction, rather than asking questions over and over again for the same set of data. I mean, there's a lot of systems these days. You can actually link up user preferences. If you already know the user, if you know his preferences, why ask the question from the bot? Because you wouldn't be asking the question from a human. You would ask, do you want me to book the same thing that you have booked 3 or 4 times? So same sort of ideas, regardless if they use NLP or not, needs to be linked up with how the conversation would flow. And handling small talk, so things like, hello, how are you? So there should be some sort of way need to be thought of, even though that is not your bot's behavior. There should be a way of handling people saying, oh, how are you? Thank you. You're welcome. Those kind of small talk behavior, because that's, again, a more natural experience of users using NLP technologies. And this is my most important thing. So end of the day, bot is a training or a knowledge base or a brain. So if you put garbage, what you get is garbage. So your output would be clear as your input can be. So if you train bot with amount of garbage information of Wikipedia to sell, I don't know, to sell shoes, if you train your bot to think about cars, then obviously you can't sell shoes, because the only training that you have given was cars. So just throwing huge amount of text at an NLP system or your bot would not make it be any smarter or be any useful. So how do you start? So I would say, again, with programming, do your hello world. Just write a simple, pick a bot platform, or if you want to code your own thing, find a bot library which can link up with things, and then write a simple hello world. Then actually choose a problem that you know that you can model, and then that you want to solve, and that in your head you know this is how the conversation goes through, this is how it has been happening, and you have previous experience of how it's going through. And then again, find a good NLP base. If you want to write your own, you can knock yourself out as well. And again, so like we did with the web technologies these days, where you actually see, when you come to a site, there's so much of analytics on your websites these days. You exactly know where this user gets stuck, what part users actually don't go to, what other things. So it needs to be, when you're modeling the conversation, it needs to be, you need to use the same approach as well. So you need to find out, so at which state that on this conversation this actually fails every time. So why do we need this? Why at which part of the conversation this is get passed to, escalated to humans over and over again? So find them, and again, it could be, there are simple things that you can do, like, I don't know, add those data onto your training model so that it picks up next time, or change the questions or the behavior, how it's going to interact. And again, if you want this to be adapted by internal as well as external, it needs to hook into your current system. Just by telling, oh, we have a bot, it's out there and there's this huge amount of data which is coming, but your current staff still needs to browse through all this communication now, which is much harder now, because it is actually going through text and then copy and paste to other systems. Nobody would be wanting to adopt that sort of a technology out there. So I think that's it for me. I said questions are not here.
What we're going to do is, what I'd like to do is keep questions to the end and do like a panel style Q&A with the 3 speakers and myself at the front, and then we can open it up to the room. So if you have any burning questions, either tweet them or save them to the end. By the way, the hashtag is IoT EDI. Internet of Things Edinburgh. So please tweet liberally and find us on Facebook and Twitter, www.iotedinburgh.com. Now, what I normally do, and I forgot to do, is open forum, which is just to really open the floor to anyone in the room to share any news you have. If you're looking for collaborators for an IoT-related project, co-founders, you're looking for a developer maybe, you're looking to hire, you're working for a tech company, you're looking to hire someone, then now, or you're organizing an event, right? Which Ray is, then now is your chance, the open forum. So does anyone apart from Ray have anything to share with the room? Daniel.
Cheating slightly because I've got a spot in a second. You mentioned looking to hire, advising a company which is looking to hire front-end web developers. So if someone fits that and is looking for a job, grab me afterwards. I'll put you in touch with them.
Front-end web developers?
JavaScript, React.js. If these.
But sort of like, kind of back-end rather than sort of front-end. I mean, not sort of looking for CRM, like a WordPress or something like that. You need someone who can actually use scripting languages, someone who's technical as opposed to creative.
Yeah, a technical.
Okay, a technical person sounds good. All right, Ray, the floor is yours.
Just a reminder about IoT Scotland, which is on the 29th of September. We've got over 200 bookings now. So we are getting close to capacity. We will overbook it slightly.
It's a great venue, right?
Amazing venue, Dynamic Earth. Pre-event attrition and on the day attrition means we'll overbook it. So if you do want a day focused on IoT and its actual application into business in Scotland and further afield, please do sign up at iotscotland.com. We've got Boeing coming to speak about how they're going through a process of automation.
Uber.
Catapult IoT, Uber, First Group. A raft of experts and commentators. So it's
Did the Glovedy guys say yes, or are they coming along? Glovedy, the Glovedy guys.
Well, he said yes in principle.
Okay.
But I think he's very keen to come up.
They're a very early stage technology startup with some very cool.
Just as a side note, if you are tweeting out about the previous discussion, be careful because I just auto-corrected chatbots into chat boys and tweeted it out.
Oops. That's a whole different niche audience there.
Thank you, Simon.
So which prediction text keyboard are you using, by the way?
Chatbots turns into chat boys.
Okay, well what you need is, actually our sponsor for this evening is Flexpansion. Now Flexpansion, I would say is one of the better, not allowed to say the best because I think that I'm biased. Tim is a very good old friend of mine and he is the founder of Flexpansion, which is an artificial intelligence powered word prediction keyboard, very similar to SwiftKey. Any of you guys heard of SwiftKey? Sold for $250 million to Microsoft. And I use SwiftKey, I use Swipe, I use Flexpansion, I use the Google keyboard, I use them very regularly, and I like to compare. And I'd say, in terms of UX and functionality, I think the Google keyboard is the nicest on both iPhone and the Nexus 6 that I'm using at the moment. But in terms of the actual word prediction, quite genuinely, I think Flexpansion is the best that I've used, and that's quite a grand claim, and it's genuinely true. And I'm not just saying that because Tim's in the room. Has anyone heard of Flexpansion before? No? How many downloads have you had?
About 70,000 on word of mouth.
And what's your 5-star?
4.7 for the pro version.
Okay, that's pretty darn good. 4.7 out of 5. Now, I'd say that is one of Edinburgh's best kept secrets, quite honestly. And the fact that a Cambridge startup doing something very similar that was acquired recently by Microsoft for $250 million, doing something very similar to what Tim's done, is like I said, I think there's a little gem that needs to be shared with the world. So I think Tim needs to work on his marketing a little bit, but the technology is sound. So thank you so much, Tim, for your ongoing support. Right, I think we are going to go on to our next speaker. Are you ready, Daniel? Winterstein from SoDash.
SoDash, yes.
And let's get you plugged in. So you got your, you using your Chromebook, or you're going to go play it safe and go for the?
This, if we can.
Uh-huh.
Would you ready for the biggest talk?
Oh, I'm so sorry. Thank you so much. Gihan, where are you? Excellent talk. Thank you, thank you. And we're going to keep the theme with chatbots, because they're going to take over the world. So make friends with them. Okay.
Okay.
But I mean, quite seriously, you know, there are some leading luminaries, including Elon Musk, who feels that artificial intelligence represents the same level of threat to humanity as nuclear weapons.
Does he not also believe that we're living in the Matrix?
The evidence is pretty compelling. Look into it in your own time. I think they're doing some research into it at CERN, and they're looking at a subatomic. It's not my area of expertise, I might add, but if they find that kind of wobble, that would suggest that we are living in a hologram. So, what Schrodinger's cat? Quantum theory.
It's a Matrix reference.
Oh, yeah. I don't know. I've watched the first one. I was like, didn't get into it. Are we good to go?
We're good to go.
Excellent. Round of applause, Daniel.
Right. Thank you, Simon. This talk is called Why I'm Giving This Talk and Not a Bot. Let's start with me. My name is Daniel Winterstein, and I came to Edinburgh in 1999 to study artificial intelligence, and I've especially focused in natural language processing. It's a good city, it's a good subject. I've not regretted either of those decisions. I'm still here. The CTO at Winterwell. We're a machine learning consultancy, and the main thing we do is we make a, let's get some, we make a product called SoDash, which is a social media platform, and it's used by companies like Harrods and Selfridges and several travel companies to manage customer support over the social media channels. We have a new product which is for SMEs, and this is a robot intern, which we call SoGrow. And SoGrow is for people who know they should do more on social media, but they don't have the time to do it. And I will be demoing that later. But first, let's talk some more about bots. So I tried getting a bot to do this talk. Let's see if we can do that again. This may be a little unfair on Cortana. Hello, Cortana. Can you help me with the talk? Maybe the microphone's not working. Hello, Cortana. Okay, that was right. That was unfair. It was out the website. When I tried it earlier, though, Cortana's default response was to send me for a search for the phrase talk. So that is why you have me here tonight. But if we ask for a second, what if that had worked? We're here, there's several of us here involved in making bots, and thousands of people around the world involved in developing AI and bot technology. What if we're successful? And I think we will be successful. What does that mean? And so in this talk, I'm going to start off very briefly looking at the big picture around automation, then get into bots and where bots can go astray and what makes deploying a good bot solution hard to do. I'm describing the sins of bots as being insincerity, poor etiquette, and being useless. And then look at one particular approach to making bots, which is a machine learning approach where you're doing bots by example. And that will lead us nicely into a quick demo of SoGrow.
Okay, so let's start with automation, the big picture. Fundamentally, there's no getting around it. If bots are successful, they do work that would otherwise need humans to do, and ultimately that is going to mean less jobs for humans. So someday, a robot is going to fire you. At least when it does that, you'll presumably be able to get your P45 at the same time. The data entry, the paperwork is going to be seamless. It's a bureaucratic dream. Grown men will weep at the joined up multi-channel communication that will go on around this. But there's no getting around. If bots are successful, they are going to change employment and how society works. There's been studies by very sober people. Like I think the Bank of England did one where they were predicting about a 30% reduction in human workforce over 30 years. And a lot of people find this scary, which is very understandable. But it's kind of another way to look at it is it's a bit of a sad reflection if life without hard or menial work scares us. And instead, let's try and imagine that the other thing these bots are going to do is they are going to make productivity go up. And if productivity goes up, there's more wealth being created. Society as a whole is wealthier. The question is, what happens to that wealth? Will we use it to make a better society where we are all better off and able to lead lives more focused on what's valuable to us? Or will we go down other more dystopian routes? And I think that choice is in our hands. It's something, I'm not going to dwell on this talk beyond saying, I think that whilst we are working on bots and pushing forward these technology barriers, we should also be thinking about what that means for society. And one particular solution that might work is to introduce a citizen's wage, which is this idea that instead of valuing people for their productivity as workers, we value them just for being people, and everyone gets a basic income which allows you to live a normal and happy life. And I will now get off my soapbox and move on to the move on to the meat of this talk. From this, people that have this concern of, will I be replaced by a robot? When will I be replaced by a robot? And why isn't my robot clone ready yet? Because bots are hard. And let's talk briefly about some of the ways that bots go wrong. I'm grouping the cardinal sins of bots into three: insincerity, poor etiquette, and being useless. And these sins are not inherent to bots. Pushy salespeople and customer service who can't really help you, these are not new inventions. These have been around for a long time. Bots are actually potentially part of the solution to that. But what bots do let you do is they allow companies to be insincere, annoying, and useless at scale. And one of the problems is automation is hard because when we do a task as human beings, we bring with it to even the simplest of tasks, like saying hello and talking about the weather, we bring a wealth of knowledge and understanding that bots just don't have at the moment. Picking on Microsoft again, did anyone follow the Tay Tweets bot that was released a while back by Microsoft? It was modeled on being a teenage girl, and it would learn from people talking to it on the internet. And well, the internet is an interesting place, and it very rapidly turned into a neo-Nazi bot. It went from, in the space of 24 hours, when it was switched on, its first tweet was to say how much it loved human beings, and within 24 hours it was tweeting neo-Nazi stuff and saying it hated everyone. They switched it off, deloused it, put it back on again, and the internet, second time round, turned it into a junkie who talked about hash. So these are hard problems, learning the skills of navigating conversations. And to pick another example, to go back to Cortana. I was using Cortana the other day trying to get some balloons for a party. The conversation went a bit like this, said, oh, we can't use it, the internet's not working. Hey Cortana, search for helium balloons. Cortana replied, here is a definition for the word search. Me. Search for helium balloons. Cortana, opened a browser search for the blues. Maybe my accent. Me, thank you, Cortana. At this point, Cortana crashed. These are hard tasks. Cortana may not be the best bot out there, but these are very hard tasks that it's wrestling with. So that's the first thing, that it's easy to build a bot which overreaches itself. It tries to be human, it tries to do everything, and it fails. And when it fails, this is the point Gihan was making earlier, we have to build for failure when we're building bots, so that this is part of what we're delivering is a good experience. The next sin is insincerity, that it's surprisingly easy using digital channels to write these scripts which are just too pushy, and well, they annoy your customers. And unfortunately, if you're looking at metrics, you will not really see the annoyance. You will see the people who clicked through, but not the people who were turned off and now think less of your brand. Classic example of this is the automatic direct message on Twitter, when you follow someone and they auto DM you back with something saying, great to connect with you, why don't you like my Facebook page too? And everyone knows this is a bot, and basically the read rate on these is very low. That channel has been degraded as a result of too many bots. Also, you'll probably get a lot of emails spam these days, where here's a couple of examples from my inbox today. These are subject lines. Daniel, open this email for 12 people you should meet. Smiley face. Spam. Another one. Making great customer experiences. Spam. They're pretending to be my friend. This is insincere. They are a sales thing. They're pretending that we're having a conversation when they're cold calling me. This is insincere. It's spam, and it deserves to go in the spam bin. There is nothing wrong with sales. There is nothing wrong with sales bots, but they should present themselves honestly. If a bot should not try to be your friend, unless that is in fact its purpose. It is a friendly bot and you have installed it for specifically that point. So I think the key to sincerity is very simple. It's be honest and open. That's my insight. Sincerity this is not a technological problem. It is a design problem. And just ask yourself, when you're creating bots, how would you feel as a recipient? If the person knew that it was a bot and what the bot's purpose was, would they still feel the same way about the conversation? And imagine that this wasn't digital, that you were talking to someone in an equivalent setting. Would you behave this way? And if the answers are yes, and often they are, then this is a sincere bot. It is doing a purpose. It is trying to help people, which can include selling your product. And if the answers are no, then rethink, because this bot is breaking some social etiquette rules. Speaking of social etiquette, This is, oh, probably, does everyone recognize Clippy? Yes. The first virtual assistant, perhaps, and probably the one that set back the market in the field for years. I think Clippy's sin was that he was intrusive. He didn't have a sense of etiquette. He jumped into conversations without being invited. And so it's important to understand the etiquette of where your bots are operating. And that etiquette varies a lot between channels. So there are certain things which are, there's spaces in Twitter where talking to strangers and jumping into conversations is acceptable, and there's spaces where it isn't. And then on other channels, it really isn't. So it's understanding the dynamics of the conversations that you're having and knowing when it's appropriate, when it's not. Okay, having talked a bit about the problems of bots, let's talk a bit about some of the solutions. For etiquette and sincerity, it's about how we use, as companies, we use bots. It's not a technical problem. It's a problem about taking care of your customers. Being useless, though, that is a technical problem, and it has a variety of solutions. I think that brings us to why don't you use automation more? Simon did a survey at the beginning. I think maybe 2 people put up their hands for using bots in their company. And why are we not all using them to handle our drudge work? Quick survey, who here has menial tasks that come into their inbox and their email?
Just email and story.
Okay.
It's exasperating.
And yet, most of us are not using automation to solve that. Why is that? Well, it's partly the fear that the bots will do more harm than good. It's partly the quality about whether we can get a bot to deliver sufficient quality for us. And it's partly the time and the cost around deploying a system, which can be very substantial. So that leads to 3 broad approaches to building better bots. And one, quite nicely, I think they align with the 3 speakers we have tonight. One is around tools for bot building. I think that's where Converse AI are working. One is around investing the time and resources to develop a high-end, high-quality bot. And I'm guessing that's where Skyscanner are. And the other approach is about bringing in machine learning so that the bot can draw as much as possible from the wealth of interactions that are already going on. And that is the approach that we're taking in SoGrow. So let me leave the tools and the high-quality bots and talk about machine learning a bit. Instead of programming the bot, instead of setting out rules and setting out how behaviors, what if the bot learns from you? Now, the first thing we want bots to handle is going to be repetitive tasks, which means that, well, the thing about repetitive tasks is, by definition, you have to do them a lot. So there is repeated training data there for the bot to learn from. Having said that, it is hard because human communication is hard. There really are a billion ways of phrasing anything, and people will find them. And if you try and solve the general problem of learning from example to deliver an NLP bot, you end up with the problem that Cortana had, that it's too hard for the technology we have at the moment. But that's the general problem. If we frame the problem so that what we're solving is something quite specific, and we focus the types of conversation that the bot can have and the types of interaction it can have, then what we can create is a space where it's much more tractable for the bot to deliver something. So these aren't bots they're not trying to be as intelligent as people. They're trying to do one thing well. And at this point, I am going to show you a couple of bots that I've been involved in building. And let's start with the very first bot I built. This is probably from 2009, I think. That is a small blue toy called Honker. And if anyone knows the comedian Adam Hills, he plays the Edinburgh Festival quite regularly and often raises money for the Sick Kids Hospital. And in 2009, he had found this toy, and he was using this as his focus for fundraising. And we built a social media bot that was the voice of Honker, the small blue alien. And all this bot would do is, if someone happened to mention it, it would retweet them and say honk. That is the sum total of actions that bot would perform. Honk, retweet. So comparing that against my sins, was Honker sincere? Yes. When it said honk, it meant it. And as someone receiving that tweet, you understood what you were getting was what you saw was what you got. There was no deception of the audience in it. Was it? Did it obey etiquette? Well, it only talked to people who you had to mention it before it would come into the conversation, so it was not intrusive. It was respectful of etiquette. Was it useful? There, maybe it falls down. But it did help run this campaign. The campaign was very successful. We raised £6,000 over a space of 3 weeks and finished with a series of completely sold out gigs that were added just at the last minute around the Honk for Honker gigs. So it did fulfill a purpose. That's a very simple bot, and I think there's something in that there is a space for simple bots doing simple things. On to Sogro, which is a slightly more sophisticated bot. Sogro is a robot intern for social media. You tell Sogro about your company and your target audience, and it then finds relevant news for you to share on social media. And it will also find people who fit, with your topics and with the sort of person you're looking to connect to. And it will do the Twitter equivalent of batting eyelashes at them, of maybe follow them, or if they make a relevant tweet, it might like it. And what this does is it lays down a kind of basic level of social media activity which helps keep your brand active on social media. It's by no means a replacement for a proper marketing strategy, but it is going to build you a bit of focused community and keep your activity there so that you are visible on social media. And let me show you a bit of Sogro. This is its own Twitter page. We can see it retweeting stuff. I'm not online, so a lot of this stuff won't come through. If there's activity going on, here it's talking about internal company news. So if there's stuff going on inside our company, it might post about that. Lots of retweets. This will be, again, stuff going on that it's picking up from either the blog or our internal issue tracker, stuff that's been marked, and it's created tweets out of that. And it's also followed some people. And that's a completely automated system. We have it running. We have a few corporate profiles that we use on social media, and they are now run by our bots. And this system, it's here's the setup of the current version. And when we were building it, we figured that really simplifying the process was core to getting bots out there. Though if it was a complex process that required a lot of training, this just wasn't going to work for the SME market. So the SoGrow setup is, it takes about 10-15 minutes, and it asks you a series of questions about you, about your company, about your audience. It will do things like take your website, and then it will grab that and do some analysis of that for what kind of topics do you talk on as well. To get the setup down to about 10-15 minutes, we firstly focused what it was going to do, we simplified it, and I must confess we also dumbed it down a bit in that we removed this grew out of some SoDash work. We removed some of the feedback and learning loops that SoDash has. And we are now launching, well, end of September we will be launching version 2 of this, which I can show you mock-up of now. And what we've done in version 2 is to add back in the feedback loops. So what SoGrow version 2 does is to make suggestions to you of what it would like to do. And you as a human can vet these. And as you do so, it will be training the AI behind it as to what you consider to be on topic, focused, what you approve of, what you don't. And this will also, actually this isn't connected, this is, so this will pretend it works. And this system allows the user to be always checking and training the system. And then when they're comfortable, once the system's reached a sufficient level of confidence, it will post a message for you going, I am now 90% confident I can predict these things correctly. Do you want me to do some automatically? And so you switch on the automation only at the point that you've hit a level of confidence. So the workflow here is it starts off as a streamlining tool that's suggesting stuff to you, but you, the human, are completely in control. And then as it gains confidence, and as you gain confidence in it, it then asks you for more leeway to take the reins off and let it do its own thing. And that's coming out end of September. So it's a bit of a shame about the timing of this talk, because I wanted to say to everyone, sign up. But please hold that sort of sign up for about a month and then sign up. Right. That is basically everything I wanted to show you. So thank you very much for listening. Next time I do this talk, maybe it will be the bot that does it. And according to Simon's rule, if you have questions, hold on to them and ask me in a minute.
Round of applause.
Right.
Now you're definitely not a chatbot. You are an actual real human being. You're not trying to fool us. Are you
Genuine
sure?
stupidity.
Can I poke you? Yeah, you feel pretty human to me. Okay, good. Thank you so much, Daniel. That was really interesting.
Thank you, Simon.
Guys, would you like to take a comfort break? Maybe get some fresh air. Now we have one restroom over there. There are others though if you go through to reception. Now, I don't know if we can actually get access to the building because I haven't attempted to get through the doors. But someone brave enough to go maybe and check and find out if there's a way? Or we have to wait and wedge the door open, and then there are restrooms through there on the left. So they're locked, closed, are they? So, okay. That's... There's a what? Oh yeah, well that's an option. Wasn't there a security guard, Tim, who told you off for drinking booze in the hallway because you were waiting for when we were in another room, weren't we? You had a nice little comfy chair. You were chugging on a cider or a beer, eating Doritos, and he came out of his little hut there. Do you think we might be able to grab his attention? Possibly. Where was he? Where was he hiding? Okay, well, I think someone should attempt to try to, otherwise, like I said, there is just one Lou there. Drinks, cold drinks, on ice, yellow bucket. Let's just take a little break, and then we'll come back for Stefan's talk, Skyscanner. Don't tell me it's chatbots. Great. Okay, fantastic, guys. Let's take a 5-minute break.